The mysterious edict. The galaxy was at peace. For years, the great civilizations of the stars had lived in fragile harmony. War seemed a distant memory, something only told in the stories of old. But that peace was about to be shattered in an instant. A shocking broadcast echoed across every corner of the galaxy, waking people from their daily lives. Humanity is permanently banned from all galactic warfare. Admiral Sarah Miller, one of Earth's top diplomats, sat frozen in her command center, staring at the screen in disbelief. Her fingers trembled slightly as she replayed the message. The edict was official, signed by the Galactic Council. It wasn't just a temporary suspension, like they had seen before. It was permanent. No more humans in the galactic wars. No more Earth allies standing on the front lines. The broadcast was short, cold, and final. For centuries, humanity had been a proud and powerful force in the galaxy. They had fought alongside other civilizations, sometimes as allies, other times as enemies. They had gained respect, built trust, and even faced their share of hard battles. But now, they were being kicked out of the very war they had once helped shape. Sarah's heart raced as she tried to process the news. What had happened? Why was Earth banned from fighting? Was it something they had done? A mistake made by their leaders? Or was there a dark secret buried deep in their past that the galaxy was now revealing? As Sarah's thoughts spun in circles, she knew one thing for sure. She had to find out the truth. The next few days were a whirlwind of meetings, hurried communications, and endless debates. Earth's top officials were furious. The Galactic Council had always been a place of diplomatic tension, but now, it seemed as if the very foundation of their relationships had crumbled. Some representatives screamed for action, demanding answers, while others felt a deep, unsettling sense of fear. Sarah, as calm as she could be in this storm of confusion, was chosen for one critical task: to uncover why humanity had been banned from war. She was Earth's top diplomat, trusted by her superiors, and now they were relying on her to find the truth, no matter how dark or dangerous it might be. She began her investigation with the help of a small team of trusted officers. They combed through records, messages, and any available intelligence, but everything seemed to point to one thing. The Galactic Council had been preparing for this moment for years. This wasn't a decision made overnight. No, something had been brewing, and Earth had been kept in the dark. The team's search led them to strange documents hidden deep within the Council's archives. There were mentions of an ancient conflict, one that had been erased from most records. It was called the Forgotten War. Sarah didn't know much about it, but she had heard whispers. There were rumors that it had involved humanity fighting alone, far from the protection and supervision of the Galactic Alliance. As Sarah dug deeper, she found a troubling pattern. The Forgotten War had been kept secret for a reason. It had been a time of chaos and destruction, one where Earth had crossed lines that even the most hardened warriors feared. The war had ended in devastation, something the galaxy had decided should never be spoken of again. But now, as she read through the pages of encrypted documents, it became clear that the ban on humanity wasn't just a punishment. It was a warning. What had humanity done in that war? What kind of weapon, what kind of strategy had they used to earn such a fate? Sarah could feel the walls closing in around her. She knew she had to find answers quickly, but the deeper she looked, the more dangerous it became. There were hints of cover-ups, of powerful figures who would go to any length to keep the truth buried. One night, as Sarah worked alone in her office, she was interrupted by a message. A single line of text flashed across the screen. "You're getting too close. Stop or else." The message was chilling. It wasn't signed, but it didn't need to be. The threat was clear. Someone, somewhere, didn't want her to uncover the truth. Sarah leaned back in her chair, staring at the screen. Fear gnawed at her insides, but her determination only grew stronger. She wasn't going to stop. Not now. Not when the fate of humanity was hanging in the balance. The next day, Sarah met with her team. They had made a breakthrough. One of the archives had revealed a name, General Kale. He was a key figure in the Forgotten War, and his files had been sealed by the Galactic Council immediately after the war ended. No one knew where Kale had gone after the war, but Sarah's team had managed to trace a few leads. If they could find him, they might learn the truth. Kale had been one of humanity's most celebrated heroes during the Forgotten War. He had led Earth's forces with unmatched skill and fearlessness. But his sudden disappearance after the war raised a troubling question. Why had such a decorated hero vanished? Sarah was determined to find out. The clock was ticking, and she could feel the weight of history pressing down on her. The galaxy might never forgive Earth for its past, but if she could find the truth, perhaps there was a chance for redemption. With a deep breath, Sarah prepared herself for what lay ahead. The road to the truth was dangerous, but she was ready to face whatever it took. The story was just beginning, and soon the galaxy would know why humanity had been banned from war. Secrets from the past. Admiral Sarah Miller sat at her desk, reviewing the files once again. The weight of the situation pressed heavily on her shoulders. The galaxy was in turmoil, and she was the only one who seemed willing to uncover the truth. Humanity's ban from galactic warfare was not just a political decision, it was a warning. But why? The mysterious message she had received, warning her to stop, only pushed her further into the depths of the investigation. Someone didn't want her to know what lay behind the ban, and that only made her more determined. She could feel the tension building, like the calm before a storm. She had to find the answers, and the first clue she needed lay in the Forgotten War. The name General Kale kept haunting her thoughts. He had been a hero during the war, a leader known for his bravery and his unorthodox tactics. His sudden disappearance after the war had left many unanswered questions. Where had he gone? What had he discovered that had caused him to vanish? Sarah couldn't rest until she knew the truth about Kale and what role he had played in the conflict that had scarred humanity's reputation forever. She turned to her team of experts. They had made progress in tracking down leads. The search had led them to a classified archive deep within the Galactic Council's archives, a place so secretive that only a handful of individuals had access to it. But somehow, they had managed to break through the security protocols. The information they uncovered was shocking. The Forgotten War had been far more brutal than anyone had imagined. The Zorath, the ancient species humanity had fought against, had been pushed to the brink of extinction by the humans' use of a forbidden weapon. It wasn't just a weapon of mass destruction. It was something far worse, something that could erase entire civilizations from existence. And humanity had used it, not once, but repeatedly, until the Zorath were no more. Sarah's heart sank as she read the records. The weapon, known only as the Annihilator, was a creation of pure destruction. It could wipe out entire populations in an instant, leaving no trace behind. The Zorath, with their advanced technology and wisdom, had been no match for it. But there was something else, something that didn't make sense. Humanity had used the weapon without the approval of the Galactic Council. It had been an act of defiance, a decision made by Earth's leaders alone, and it had cost humanity everything. But what had driven them to use such a weapon? What could have been so dangerous, so important, that Earth had taken matters into its own hands? The more Sarah thought about it, the more questions arose. Her team continued to dig, finding more records, more clues hidden deep in the archives. There were whispers of an alliance within the Galactic Council, a secret faction that had pushed for Earth's involvement in the war. These were the same people who had kept the truth about the Annihilator weapon hidden. They had allowed Earth to fight the war without any oversight, giving them free rein to use whatever methods they saw fit. But when the Zorath were destroyed, the Council had turned on Earth, condemning their actions in the name of galactic peace. It didn't add up. If Earth had used the weapon to defeat the Zorath, why had they been abandoned? Why had the Council not intervened sooner? And why, after all this time, was humanity still being punished? Sarah knew she was getting closer to the heart of the mystery. She could feel it in her gut. There was something bigger at play here, something that went beyond just the war itself. There were forces in the galaxy that wanted to bury the truth, forces that would stop at nothing to keep humanity from ever fighting again. As Sarah and her team delved deeper into the archives, they uncovered a chilling revelation. The weapon, the annihilator, had not been the only secret humanity had kept hidden. There were whispers of an even darker event, something far more dangerous than anyone had realized. An experiment, a test gone wrong, an attempt to harness the power of a long-lost civilization. And it was this very experiment that had caused the galaxy to turn against humanity. But where were the records of this experiment? And why had the Council erased them? Sarah's mind raced as she pieced together the fragments of information. The more she learned, the more she understood the gravity of the situation. Humanity had made a terrible mistake, one that had nearly destroyed an entire species. And now, it seemed the galaxy was unwilling to forgive them. But Sarah couldn't stop. She had come too far. The truth had to come out, no matter the cost. With every passing day, the pressure mounted. The Council's agents were closing in on her, trying to silence her at every turn. But Sarah had learned too much to back down. The secret of the Forgotten War was out, and she would make sure the galaxy knew the truth, even if it meant risking everything. But time was running out. The Zoreth were not the only threat humanity faced now. The Council's agents were hunting her, and soon they would find her. Would Sarah be able to expose the truth before it was too late? Or would the galaxy's dark secret remain buried forever? The race against time had begun. The hidden truth. Admiral Sarah Miller sat in the dimly lit room, her mind racing with the information they had uncovered. The walls seemed to close in around her, and the weight of the galaxy's judgment pressed down on her shoulders. The galaxy had been silent for years, pretending that humanity's dark past was nothing but a distant memory. But now, as Sarah unraveled the layers of secrecy, it was clear that the truth was much darker than anyone could have imagined. The annihilator, the weapon of ultimate destruction, had been only the beginning. It wasn't just a tool of war. It was a force of nature, capable of reshaping entire systems, erasing entire species, and humanity had wielded it without restraint. But what had led to this moment? What had driven humanity to take such drastic, violent measures? The Council had always been vague about the details, but as Sarah pieced together the fragments of history, a horrifying picture began to emerge. The Galactic Council had known about humanity's potential for violence. They had watched Earth's rise through the ages, from a small, struggling planet to a power that had quickly made a name for itself across the stars. But Earth's leaders had always pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable. And when the Zoreth, an ancient and powerful race, had threatened the galaxy, Earth had been the first to step in. But instead of simply fighting the war, Earth's leaders had made a decision that would haunt them forever. They had experimented with an ancient power, something older and more dangerous than anything the galaxy had ever known. The weapon known as the Annihilator had been designed as a last resort weapon to wipe out entire fleets in seconds. But its true purpose went far beyond that. It was the key to something much darker. Sarah's team had uncovered records of a secret project, Project Genesis. It had started innocently enough, a way to harness the energy of the stars to create an unstoppable force. But somewhere along the way, it had gone horribly wrong. The project had begun experimenting with alien technology, trying to manipulate the fabric of space itself. They had created a force so powerful that it could erase entire planets with a single strike. Sarah's eyes widened as she read the next line in the report. The project had been based on the lost technology of the Elders, an ancient race that had disappeared centuries ago, leaving behind nothing but ruins and legends. The Elders were a mystery to everyone in the galaxy. Little was known about them, but their technology was said to be far more advanced than anything the current galactic civilizations possessed. And now, humanity had stumbled upon that power, unleashing something that had been lost for millennia. As Sarah read further, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together. The annihilator was not just a weapon. It was a tool created by humanity to control the power of the stars, to manipulate space itself. But in doing so, they had crossed a line that the galaxy could not ignore. The Zoreth had been the first to feel the effects of the weapon, and their extinction was only the beginning. But what was the true cost of this power? What had humanity sacrificed in their pursuit of dominance? As Sarah pieced together the rest of the records, she realized the truth was even more shocking than she had imagined. The annihilator had not only destroyed the Zoreth, it had also unleashed something far worse. The elders had warned the galaxy long ago, do not tamper with the fabric of space. And yet, humanity had done exactly that. The weapon's use had torn holes in the very fabric of the universe, creating dangerous rifts in space-time. These rifts, if left unchecked, could destroy entire star systems, possibly even the galaxy itself. And now, the galaxy was paying the price for humanity's arrogance. Sarah's stomach twisted as she understood the full scale of the damage. The Galactic Council had decided to act, to prevent humanity from ever using the annihilator again. They had banned humanity from warfare, to stop the potential destruction that could result from the rifts in space. The decision was not about revenge, it was about survival. But there was more. As Sarah's team continued to investigate, they uncovered an even darker secret. The Galactic Council had known about the rifts for years, but they had hidden the truth from the galaxy. They had been afraid that if the full story came out, the galaxy would turn on the Council itself. So they had blamed humanity, hoping that Earth would be the scapegoat for the destruction caused by the weapon. But humanity wasn't the only one responsible for the rifts. The Council itself had used the same technology, the same ancient power, in secret, attempting to harness its destructive capabilities for their own gain. Earth had been the only one to use the weapon openly, but the Council had been just as guilty of tampering with the forces of the universe. Sarah's heart pounded as she realized the full extent of the conspiracy. Humanity wasn't just banned from war because of their own actions. They were being punished for the sins of the entire galaxy. But there was one more question that still haunted Sarah. What did the elders know? The elders had vanished centuries ago, but their warnings had never been forgotten. If the Council and humanity were both guilty of unleashing the rifts, could there be another, even greater threat looming on the horizon? The deeper Sarah dug, the more questions arose. She had come this far, and she couldn't stop now. The truth was dangerous, but it was the only weapon she had. The galaxy was unraveling, and the answers she sought could either save it or destroy it. The hunt for the final piece of the puzzle had begun. The Galactic Reckoning. The weight of the revelations was becoming unbearable for Sarah. As she and her team delved deeper into the truth about the weapon and the Council's role, the galaxy seemed to be closing in around them. The more secrets they uncovered, the more dangerous the situation became. Someone was watching. Someone wanted them to stop. But Sarah couldn't turn back now. The galaxy's future was on the line. The rifts in space-time were not just theoretical anymore. They were real, and they were growing. The cracks in the universe, once thought to be small anomalies, were beginning to tear apart entire star systems. Ships that had ventured too close to the rifts had vanished without a trace, and entire colonies were starting to experience strange, unexplained phenomena. The damage was already spreading, and if nothing was done, it would only get worse. But there was still one question that gnawed at Sarah's mind. Why had the Galactic Council allowed this to happen? The more she investigated, the more it became clear that the Council had known about the rifts long before the rest of the galaxy. They had buried the truth, hoping that it would remain hidden, but it couldn't be ignored any longer. The rifts were becoming impossible to ignore. They were spreading faster than anyone had anticipated, and with each new anomaly, the galaxy teetered on the edge of disaster. Sarah had discovered an encrypted file that was different from the others. It was labeled with the Galactic Council's insignia, but it wasn't something they had shared with the public. It was a message from the highest levels of the Council, and it was clear that the stakes had changed. The Council wasn't just worried about humanity anymore. They were worried about the entire galaxy. The message was chilling. It spoke of a race of beings, far more ancient than the Elders, who were believed to be responsible for the creation of the rifts. The beings, known only as the Architects, had once lived in the void between galaxies, building and shaping the universe as they saw fit. But something had gone wrong. Their experiments, similar to humanity's own, had caused the fabric of reality to unravel, creating chaos and destruction wherever they had gone. The Architects had vanished millennia ago, but their influence still lingered. The rifts were their doing. And now, humanity had unwittingly reignited the power they had once wielded. The Annihilator was more than just a weapon. It was a key that had unlocked something ancient, something terrifying. Sarah's hands trembled as she read the rest of the message. The Council had tried to keep the truth hidden, hoping that the galaxy would forget the Architects' existence. But it was clear now. Humanity was not the only threat to the galaxy's survival. The Architects' legacy was still out there, and if the rifts continued to spread, it wouldn't be long before the Architects returned, this time with a power that could tear apart entire star systems with ease. But there was still hope. The message hinted at a way to stop the rifts, to seal them before they could cause irreversible damage. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't guaranteed to work. But if Sarah and her team could find the location of the Architects' lost archives, they might be able to uncover the knowledge needed to stop the rifts from spreading. It was a long shot, but it was the only chance they had left. As Sarah prepared to leave the Council's hidden vault, a message arrived from an unexpected source. The Elders. The ancient race had remained silent for centuries, but now they were making contact. The message was brief but clear. "We know what you've discovered. You are not alone in this fight. The Architects must not return." Sarah's heart raced as she processed the words. The Elders had always been a mystery, their civilization shrouded in secrets. But now, they were reaching out. Why? What did they know about the Architects, and what role did they play in the galaxy's fate? There was no time to waste. The rifts were expanding, and with the Architects' return on the horizon, the galaxy's very existence was at risk. Sarah knew that she couldn't wait for the Council to act. The responsibility rested with her and her team now. They had to find the lost archives, uncover the truth about the Architects, and stop the rifts before it was too late. The hunt for the ancient secrets of the Architects had begun, and as Sarah made her way to the hidden location, she could feel the tension rising. The galaxy was at a crossroads. Humanity's past mistakes had brought them to this point, but it was now up to them to set things right. The countdown had started. The race to save the galaxy was on. The Architects' return. The galaxy was on the brink. The rifts continued to expand, threatening to swallow entire star systems. Entire colonies were being evacuated, and the once proud fleets of the Galactic Council were now powerless against the cosmic tear. Humanity, blamed for the chaos, stood at the edge of the abyss, with no one willing to help. But Sarah Miller wasn't about to give up. The Elders had reached out, offering their assistance. But there was one thing Sarah still didn't understand. Why now? After centuries of silence, what had prompted them to intervene? What did they know about the Architects that had prompted them to reach out to her? Her mind raced as she and her team prepared for their journey to find the lost archives. The message from the Elders had given them hope, but it also raised more questions. The rifts were more than just a phenomenon. They were a signal, a warning. If the Architects were truly returning, then the galaxy needed to prepare for a force like nothing it had ever seen before. Sarah's pulse quickened as they approached the location of the ancient archives, an ancient city buried deep beneath the surface of a forgotten planet, far on the edge of the galaxy. It had been hidden away for millennia, and its exact coordinates were known only to the most ancient of races. Now Sarah had uncovered them, but there was no guarantee that the secrets buried within would be enough to stop the Architects from returning. The journey had been dangerous. The rifts had made travel through space difficult, and they had encountered hostile alien factions determined to stop them at all costs. But they had pushed forward, knowing that if they didn't act, the galaxy would fall apart. The team landed on the barren planet, their ship touching down on the dusty surface with a soft thud. The desolate landscape stretched out before them, broken only by towering ruins and half-collapsed structures. Sarah could feel the weight of the planet's history pressing down on her as they made their way through the ruins. There was a haunting silence in the air, as though the very ground beneath their feet was waiting for something. As they entered the ancient city, they found evidence of a once thriving civilization. The walls were lined with intricate carvings, depicting strange symbols and events that seemed to transcend time itself. But it wasn't the carvings that caught Sarah's eye. It was the central structure at the heart of the city, a massive spiraling tower that stretched up toward the sky, its tip obscured by swirling clouds. "Is this the place?" one of Sarah's team members asked, his voice barely a whisper. "It's the only place," Sarah replied, her eyes scanning the tower. The ancient archives were rumored to be hidden within its depths, and if the stories were true, the secrets of the architects would be waiting for them inside. But the closer they got, the more uneasy Sarah felt. Something wasn't right. There was a subtle energy in the air, a faint hum that reverberated through her bones. It felt like the planet itself was alive, watching them, waiting for them to make their move. They entered the tower, moving cautiously through its darkened halls. The air was thick with dust and age, and the walls were covered with strange glyphs that seemed to shift as they walked past them. It was as if the tower was alive, aware of their presence. As they reached the top of the tower, they discovered an enormous chamber, filled with ancient technology that hummed with strange energy. At the center of the room was an altar, and upon it, a stone tablet. The tablet was inscribed with ancient writing that, despite being millennia old, was strangely familiar to Sarah. "This is it," Sarah said, her voice full of awe. "The archives. The truth is here." She stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. As her fingers brushed the tablet, a wave of energy surged through the room. The walls began to glow with an otherworldly light, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. Suddenly, the doors to the chamber slammed shut with a deafening noise, trapping them inside. The energy from the tablet surged, and the room began to shift. The walls seemed to bend and twist, and Sarah felt a strange sensation wash over her, as if time itself had lost its meaning. "What's happening?" one of her team members shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "We've activated something," Sarah said, her voice shaking. "We've triggered the archives. The architect's technology is awakening." The room seemed to pulse with energy, and then suddenly the light around them faded. The walls returned to their normal, ancient state, but the air was thick with a sense of dread. Something had changed, and then they heard it. A low, eerie hum began to echo through the chamber. It started softly, but quickly grew louder, until it filled the room with a deafening sound. Sarah's heart raced as the hum turned into a voice, a deep, otherworldly voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You have awakened us." The voice was ancient, its tone heavy with power and wisdom. It felt as though the very universe itself was speaking to them. Sarah and her team stood frozen, their eyes wide with fear and awe. The architects have returned. The room was filled with a blinding light, and for a moment, Sarah felt as though she was being torn from reality itself. The energy in the room was overwhelming, and she could feel the presence of something far greater than anything she had ever encountered. The architects were here, and they were not pleased. The truth was now clear. The rifts, the annihilator, humanity's dark history, they had all led to this moment. The architects were returning to reclaim what was theirs, and nothing would stop them. The galaxy's fate now rested in their hands. The architects' power unleashed. The room was shrouded in a suffocating silence, the hum of the ancient voice lingering in the air. The architects had spoken, And now Sarah and her team were left to grapple with the magnitude of what they had awakened. The cold, unrelenting energy of the architects seemed to reverberate through the very bones of the tower. The walls trembled as if the planet itself was coming alive in response to their presence. Who are you?" one of Sarah's team members asked, his voice shaky. The fear in his voice was palpable, and it echoed Sarah's own thoughts. What had they just unleashed? The voice, ancient and imperious, responded once more, its tone a blend of both sadness and fury. "We are the architects, builders of realities, shapers of worlds. You have disturbed the balance. You have awakened the power that was meant to remain dormant." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The weight of those words hung heavily in the chamber. The power that the architect spoke of, it wasn't just a weapon or an artifact. It was the varied force that had created the rifts, the force that had torn apart space and time itself. And now, humanity had awoken it. "We didn't mean to," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. But the architects were unmoved. "Your ignorance has set the course of your fate. The rifts are but the beginning. The fabric of the universe weakens, and the power of the architects will spread once again. Nothing will remain." A cold chill ran down Sarah's spine. She had known the galaxy was in danger, but now it was clear. The architects weren't just a threat to humanity. They were a threat to the entire galaxy, to the very universe itself. "Is there nothing we can do?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. She looked at the glowing stone tablet, now pulsing with an eerie light. Was it the key to stopping the rifts? Or had they merely triggered the final countdown to the galaxy's destruction? "There is a way," the architect's voice replied, its tone softer now, as if imparting a final piece of knowledge. "But it requires a sacrifice. The power to close the rifts lies within you, within humanity. You must be willing to give up everything to stop what you have begun." Sarah felt the weight of those words. The power to stop the rifts was within humanity, but at what cost? Could she and her team pay the price required to save the galaxy? And more importantly, would humanity be willing to make that sacrifice? The room was suffocatingly quiet as Sarah processed the gravity of the situation. She looked at her team, their faces filled with uncertainty and fear. They had come this far, but now the path ahead seemed almost impossible. To close the rifts, to save the galaxy from the architect's wrath, would require a cost far beyond their understanding. "Are you certain?" Sarah asked. She needed to know if they were prepared for what was to come. "We are certain," the architect's voice responded. "You have the power. You only need to decide." But Sarah wasn't sure if they had the time to decide. The rifts were spreading, tearing through the galaxy at an alarming rate. Whole star systems were being lost, entire civilizations consumed by the energy of the rifts. If humanity was to act, they needed to act now. The Elder's message came to her mind. "You are not alone in this fight." But how could they help? They had remained silent for so long, and now, at the very edge of extinction, they were offering their help. Could they provide the key to stopping the architects, or were they simply trying to save their own skins, unwilling to face the true consequences of what humanity had awakened? Sarah's hand shook as she placed it on the glowing tablet. She could feel the pulse of energy beneath her fingertips, as if the tablet itself was waiting for her to make a decision. There was no turning back. The room shifted again, and a portal of blinding light appeared before them. It wasn't like the rifts. This portal was different. It was controlled, stable. The architects were offering them a chance to travel to the heart of the rift, to find the source of the power and close it once and for all. But to do so, they would have to enter the rift itself, to face whatever lay at the center of the rift, the very place where the architect's power had been sealed away eons ago. "We're running out of time," Sarah said, her voice strained. "We need to make a decision. Now." Her team nodded, their faces grim. They had no other choice. They would follow her. Together, they would face the architects, face the rift, and do whatever it took to stop the galaxy from unraveling. As they stepped toward the portal, Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. She didn't know what lay on the other side, but she knew one thing. This was humanity's final stand. They had awoken the architects, but they could also be the ones to end their reign. The portal surged with energy, and Sarah felt herself pulled into it, her body trembling from the sheer force of the unknown. The universe was waiting, holding its breath. And then, in an instant, everything went dark. The final confrontation. The darkness enveloped them. Sarah's eyes fluttered open, but all she could see was an endless void, a black expanse that stretched on forever. She could feel the cold, the eerie silence, and the weight of the galaxy's fate pressing down on her. Her pulse raced, but she didn't move. She couldn't. She was trapped in the dark void of the rift, lost in a place that defied all reason and logic. But then, a faint light appeared in the distance, a soft, glowing blue that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Slowly, it grew brighter, revealing the outline of a massive structure, something ancient and vast. As she and her team approached, they could see it more clearly, a tower, jagged and twisted, surrounded by swirling energy that seemed to stretch and contract in time with the pulsations of the light. "This is it," Sarah whispered, "the center of the rift." She stepped forward, leading her team into the heart of the rift. They had arrived at the source of the architect's power, the place where it had all begun, where the very fabric of reality was torn apart. And now, they had to stop it. But the moment Sarah stepped closer to the tower, the energy around them intensified. It hummed with a force that felt like it was alive, watching them, waiting for them. The very air seemed to crackle with power. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the rift, a voice that sent a chill down Sarah's spine. It was familiar, yet colder than before. "You've come, but it is too late. The architects are returning, and you cannot stop us." The voice reverberated through the void, shaking Sarah to her core. It was the same voice they had heard before, the architects. But now, it was filled with a sense of finality, as if they had already won. The rift was their domain, and nothing would stop them from reclaiming their place in the universe. Sarah's hand clenched into a fist, and she took a deep breath. They were on the edge of losing everything, but she wasn't going to give up. Not now. Not when humanity's future hung in the balance. "We're not giving up," she said, her voice steady despite the fear that gnawed at her insides. "Humanity will fight for the galaxy. For everyone." With a determined glance at her team, Sarah moved forward, her steps slow but resolute. The rift pulsed around them, but they pressed on, refusing to back down. This was their final chance to stop the architects, to close the rift, and to save the galaxy. As they reached the tower's base, they saw something that made their hearts stop. A massive, glowing crystal lay at the center of the tower, its radiance casting eerie shadows on the walls. It was connected to the rift, the source of its power. The architects had built the rift around this crystal, and it had become the key to their dominance. Sarah understood now. This crystal was not just a power source. It was a prison that held the architect's power, and if released, it would consume the galaxy. One of Sarah's team members, Marcus, stepped forward, his eyes locked on the crystal. "This is it. If we destroy this crystal, we destroy the rift." But as he spoke, the rift around them began to twist and bend. The energy surged, creating violent waves of force that threw them off balance. The architect's voice echoed again, louder this time, filled with anger and desperation. "You do not understand. The rift is the only way. The universe must be reborn. We are its creators. You are nothing." The rift's energy intensified, threatening to swallow them whole. But Sarah was not afraid. She had come too far to turn back now. "Humanity has fought for its place in the universe," Sarah said, her voice rising above the chaos, "and we will fight to protect it, no matter what the architects think." With one final defiant step, Sarah reached out and placed her hand on the crystal. The moment her fingers touched its surface, A surge of energy erupted from the crystal, blasting through the rift. The force was immense, nearly knocking her off her feet, but she held on. She could feel the power coursing through her, overwhelming, but also familiar. It was the power of creation, of destruction, of life and death. And then, with one final push, Sarah made the choice. She shattered the crystal. The explosion of light was blinding, a burst of energy that seemed to rip through the very fabric of reality. The rift trembled and shook, its energy destabilizing. The walls of the tower cracked and split, and the swirling darkness around them began to collapse in on itself. For a moment, everything went silent. And then, slowly, the rift began to close. The power of the architects was being undone. The crystal was no longer a prison, but a beacon for the galaxy to heal. The rift, which had threatened to tear apart everything, was collapsing into nothingness. The light from the crystal faded, and the tower crumbled away, its twisted shape dissolving into the dark void. And as the rift closed, the energy that had filled the galaxy began to settle, the chaos easing, the destruction ceasing. The universe had been saved. Humanity had won. Sarah stood there, breathing heavily, her body trembling with the intensity of what they had just done. But there was no time to rest. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. The architects might have been stopped, but other threats would rise. The galaxy would always be in danger, but humanity had proven something that day. They had shown that they were capable of great things, that even in the face of the unknown, they would rise to defend what mattered. The galaxy was theirs to protect. And with that, Sarah and her team stepped back into the light, ready to face whatever came next.